Welcome back. We're continuing our conversation on grief with Coach Drew. This next segment is all about what to do with grief. How can we process it in a healthy way? And when should we ask for your support or for support? But first, let's talk about children. How grief can be different in children, and what are some age appropriate ways for us to be able to help them walk through it?
So, like we were talking about earlier, grief is unique and it's personal.
Mm-hmm.
So, children haven't been alive for very long, so they don't have a full scope of reference of life. So, this is going to be something that is new for them,
Yeah.
and they're not going to have language for it for the most part. So, the concept of death and loss may be new for them, depending how young or how mature they are. And then there's also not having a language for their emotions and what they're experiencing. So, if you've ever been in a conversation where you just can't find the words or you
Yes.
feel this level of frustration, imagine that times 10. So, quite often, the lack of expression will lead to frustration, which will lead to physical aggression, sometimes like that, or they might get lost in their thoughts and be, focus drifting off, daydreaming, those kinds of things. Those are some of the things you will likely witness.
I know with our girls, just even personality types can be different. And they lost a childhood friend very close to them. And
Mm,
our one daughter is very expressive. And so it was very, emotional outwardly. Whereas our other daughter, and she ended up coming down with a fever when their friend passed. Whereas our other daughter, she didn't know what to do with the grief and internalize it. And it took a few years for her to figure out how to get
right.
all these feelings out.
Yeah.
So even just different personalities,
hmm
it can hit them differently.
Yeah. And it's, again, loss is destabilizing.
Mm.
So if you think there's an earthquake and you're just like, for a while, you're
How do
trying to
we help
find
them
your
as a parent
footing,
then
right?
to
It,
get
it,
their footing?
well, I think it's important to, one, know your child so you recognize any changes
Right.
and then seek to understand what those changes are about.
Mm.
Asking questions is good, listening, being close, uh, paying attention to those kinds of things. Sometimes finding and giving them the language is going
Okay.
to be important. Sometimes, depending on the age, we don't
Yeah.
want to give too much information about
Right.
what has
That's
happened.
true too. Yeah.
So, but then some children, without the information, they won't be able to move forward.
Again,
So,
so true.
it's definitely
It's really hard to just nail it down that this is the absolute way.
right.
We're so different. We all process things differently, and you can't just have this one rule. This works for everybody, right?
That's right. That's right.
Wow. So, okay, for adults now, what mindset shifts can help us process and work through grief in a healthy way? Because obviously, as adults, we can find a lot of unhealthy ways to do it. But what are some real set things that we can go, okay, if I need to think on this, focus on this to move forward. It doesn't mean that you're forgetting things, but to move forward in life in a healthy way.
Yeah. So, some of the things that I encourage people to do is pay attention to what's happening in your body.
Mm,
Our body is always giving us signals about what we're feeling, but also what we're thinking.
right.
So you feel these things in your body. It has to go somewhere.
So
You've got to
true.
do something with it.
Hmm.
That's why physical exercise is really
Hmm.
important. You might not be able to walk off your grief, but you
Hmm.
can sometimes burn off that energy,
Hmm.
which will then help you to make room for thinking and processing.
Right.
So as we start to think about processing, labeling what you feel is important. There's a whole host of reasons
Right.
why that's beneficial, but ultimately it helps us to tolerate what we feel. It
Mm,
also helps us to move away from judging what we feel.
okay.
So
That's
we want to
good.
make room to understand our unique experience of loss
Right.
because the journey to healing and growth is often lodged within understanding. If you don't understand yourself, you won't be able to help yourself. So, a lot of times we are not listening well to our bodies. We're not paying attention to our thoughts. We're not seeking to understand our loss. So, sometimes it's helpful to connect with somebody who will
Mm,
listen well, who will reflect what it is that they're hearing
yeah.
and what it is that you're saying. And if you're not ready to meet with someone, you can
Hmm.
also journal. You can
That's
pray. You
great.
can draw. There are lots of ways to start to tap into what's happening for you.
And when does it turn? When should you recognize that it's turning to to depression? Maybe we can touch on that just briefly before we come back after the break. So stay with us. Some practical takeaways for navigating grief when we're back. Thanks.